My wife Megan and I'm 27. She's 26 when my story begins. We've only been married 3 years, but things have been going awry lately. Although I was sure from the day we met that Megan was the love of my life, suddenly things weren't so simple. Megan seems to be in a bad mood most of the time, and her explanation is that I pay too much attention to other women, including our friends. Last night, our standard argument became more intense than usual because I finally broke down. For God's sake, Megan, despite the fact that I have never given you the slightest reason to doubt my fidelity, you continue to act as if I have already cheated or will soon cheat. What the hell is your problem? I trust you despite your petty, although much more serious than mine flirtations, and if I just tell one of your friends that I like her dress, you start acting like I've been sleeping with her for a month. I shouted, unable to control my voice, the hair on the back of my neck standing on end and my face turning red. We screamed at each other for another 10 minutes until she ran out of the living room of our rented house, crying. She locked herself in the master bedroom. When I got ready to go to bed, I told her to open the door, otherwise I would break it down. She refused, probably either not believing that I would try, or thinking that I couldn't, or she just didn't care, I don't know which. A minute later, she was walking towards the second bedroom, passing the broken door lock. Despite my anxiety, I quickly fell asleep, my only concern being that since I couldn't lock the bedroom door, she might hurt me in my sleep. The next morning, I made blueberry pancakes, sausage, and Paradise Roaster's signature Kona K7 coffee her favorite breakfast as a peace offering. She was not very talkative, but she ate and drank with pleasure. Then I started talking about the basketball game she had bought tickets for on Saturday. She played Division Roman III basketball in high school and college and loves the game. But after yesterday's explosion, I didn't know if she'd come with me. I was going to go anyway. She agreed, acting like she was doing me a favor, and we even exchanged a few not-so-sharp words on the way there. When we arrived at the arena, I was pleased to see that the tickets were as good as she described. They were in the lower sector, about halfway between the east basketball basket and the center line. Megan likes to sit in the aisle so she can stretch out her long legs. Even though I am 4 inches taller than her, I gave her space to make her happy. We watched the warm-up in silence until, as she said, I began to look at one of the visiting team's defenders. No, I don't like men, it was a women's game. This caused her to make several sarcastic remarks, which did not stop even when the man and woman walked past us, and we stood up to let them pass. The woman took a seat next to me, and the man sat next to her, closer to the middle of the platform. I didn't get a good look at them as they passed us, but the man seemed to be Megan's height, and I may have thought he gave Megan a subtle smile, and the woman was about 5'7" tall. They looked about the same age as Megan and me. Even during the first quarter of the game, Megan kept making snarky comments like, "Oh look, your girlfriend just made a three-pointer," which I didn't react to. What was harder for me to ignore were the snarky comments the man sitting next to me made to the woman sitting next to me. They were even more sarcastic than Megan's. The woman seemed trying to ignore him. At the end of the first quarter, the home team was leading 16-14. Megan stood up silently and walked towards the food and drink area. The man sitting in the seat next to me also soon left, demanding that the woman sitting next to me and him stand up to let him pass. And then, for the first time, I noticed that this woman was pretty. After we sat down, our eyes briefly met. And since misfortune loves company, I said to her, "It seems that your companion is in as bad a mood as my wife." "If he were just my date, I would have left already," she chuckled. "But he is my husband, at least for now." In order not to dwell on our common misfortune, I started talking to her about basketball. She played guard on a Division Roman III team in college. "I couldn't score a damn thing, but I led the conference in assists. Did you play?" she said and asked. "Yes, my wife and I played at the same college. I was short for a power forward, but I made up for it with intensity. I couldn't score well either, but I played great defense and led the team in rebounds my senior year," replied I. "What are you doing now?" she asked. "I'm an aspiring lawyer," I replied. So now, instead of waving my elbows, I file documents. What about you? I work as the assistant director of admissions at our team's main campus, she replied. I personally lobbied, along with the coach, for the admission of Kate Simmons, the girl on our team who was the points leader in the first quarter, she said proudly. Megan then returned with a beer for herself, but nothing for me, and shortly after that the woman's husband returned and our conversation ended. During the break, Megan left again without saying a word to me, perhaps to go to the toilet or buy popcorn or more beer, I didn't know what exactly. The husband of the woman sitting next to me stood up to leave again. The woman moved away to let him through, and I stood up to let him through too. He said a quick thank you to me, but didn't say anything to his wife. The woman and I resumed our conversation from the end of the first quarter. It looks like your husband's mood didn't improve in the second quarter, I chuckled, although it wasn't funny. Yeah, I don't know what to do about it. His problem seems to be jealousy, and that makes me wonder. Don't a lot of psychologists say that when someone exhibits an irrational trait, they believe that everyone is the same as they, and this is a manifestation of guilt? I think you're right. I've noticed this especially with honesty. Dishonest people always suspect everyone else of being unscrupulous because they think everyone else is just as corrupt as they are, I replied, truly meeting her eyes for the first time. We talked for a few more minutes, probably smiling at each other. That's why the kiss camera is targeting us. When the woman said, "Oh shit," and pointed to the giant video screen hanging above the center of the site, I saw the two of us as clearly on the screen as I saw her in person, sitting right next to me, with a heart projected around us. We seemed to have surprised and shy facial expressions. The remaining spectators who had not left for beer or nachos began chanting, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." We looked at each other. Well, shall we try it? I asked with a big smile on my face. Why not? My husband is clearly not in the mood, she giggled in response. I intended to give a light kiss on the lips. However, when our lips met, her lips were so sweet that they reminded me of the chorus from an old song, "Honey drips from your sweet lips." So the kiss continued for a long time. Apparently, I put a lot more emotion into it than I thought, because the crowd started applauding wildly. We finally broke the kiss, and when we looked back at the video screen, it was flashing the words "Red Heat," with small fireworks and rocket symbols, almost like a video display of fireworks. Luckily, 10 seconds later, the screen started showing the first half statistics. We were silent for about a minute. I know I was embarrassed, and most likely she was too. When I finally turned to her, her face was red. I assumed mine was too. I mumbled, since we seem to be the best halftime entertainment, I should at least know your name. My name is Aaron, I said, holding out my hand. She took it and muttered, My name is Julie. I'm sorry I got carried away. I didn't mean to. No problem, I replied. I got carried away too. We both looked straight ahead, no more words. When Megan returned a few minutes later, she asked me, what was all that wild fun about a few minutes ago? Giving me hope that she didn't see it. My honest answer was, two reluctant people were caught on a kissing cam, and it looks like their kiss was a little hotter than expected, and the crowd loved the change from shyness to passion. I glanced at Julie briefly after I said that. There was a devilish smile on her face. The rest of the game was relatively uneventful, except that both Megan and Julie's husband left their seats again between the third and fourth quarters, but did not return with any treats. I thought, they must have little bubbles, although I had never noticed that with Megan before. While they were gone, Julie and I had an innocent conversation. Luckily, the kiss cam didn't appear again. Megan and I didn't kill each other in the second half of the game, and neither did Julie and her husband. The home team crushed the visitors in the second half, so the fans were not on tenterhooks. Megan and her husband left 6 minutes before the end of the match. When they stood up and apologized, Megan and I also stood up to let them through. As Julie passed me, she discreetly slipped something into my hand. I secretly put it in my pocket. It was a piece of paper. Megan and I left the arena with 3 minutes left in the game. I tried to be as cheerful as possible on the way home, mostly talking about the intricacies of the game. When we got home, I made dinner and opened a bottle of Megan's favorite wine, something I don't usually do. My motives were not entirely pure. Ever since I'd been at the game, my libido had been strangely increased, and given Megan's recent mood and our outburst yesterday, I thought I needed to get her drunk. Although it took a lot of effort and a little luck, good food, 2 bottles of wine, which she drank with little help from me, and a foot massage did the trick. Around 11 p.m., we went to bed together in the master bedroom, and I had sex with her with more energy than I had been capable of for the last few months since her bad mood began. It felt really good until I started imagining that it was Julie I had just fucked. On Sunday morning, I pulled the pants I wore to the basketball game out of the closet and looked in the front right pocket. The piece of paper simply said, Julie XXXXXX 3287. Unless she was being very sneaky, it was probably her cell number. This triggered a memory of my hallucination from the previous evening, and I became aroused. I memorized the phone number and then swallowed the piece of paper. Personal story by Julie Waters. At the beginning of my story, I was 28, my husband Derek was 29, and we had been married for more than 4 years, but less than 5. I was sure that Derek was the love of my life almost from the day we met. Derek was a level-headed guy. Most of the time I knew him passionate when he needed to be, but level-headed the rest of the time. Everything changed a few months ago. Suddenly, things I did that were rightfully considered harmless the entire time we were together began to make him jealous and turn him into a real jerk. One of his jealous attacks really puzzled and angered me. We were at a casual outdoor party, and I was just talking to a guy we both knew named Jeremy. Jeremy laughed at something I said and lightly touched my arm. Derek came up to us, clearly pissed off, and pushed him, and Derek had no excuse that he was drunk. I was so stunned that I didn't even hear what Derek said or what Jeremy's harsh response was. I pushed my way between them and told Derek in no uncertain terms to chill. He left angry. I apologized to Jeremy, and he seemed to accept my apology, but left the party shortly after. Derek refused to even discuss it that night, and the atmosphere in the Waters household was icy for the next few days. I'm usually quite perceptive, but I couldn't figure Derek out from the beginning of his jealous phase, and just when I thought maybe things were looking up, he suddenly announced that he'd bought tickets to the girls' basketball game on Saturday for both of us. Derek knew I liked basketball because I played on the high school team and on the Division Roman III team in college, so I was really excited. He assured me that the tickets were excellent. Derek was so excited and pleased with himself that I didn't mention that my position would give me free tickets to the game. When we got to the match, I saw that the seats he took were better than the ones they usually get for free, so I was glad I didn't say anything. As we walked to our seats, we walked past a tall couple. Derek smiled at a woman who was about his height, and I smiled at a cute guy, although he didn't react and probably didn't even notice me. Given his recent antics, I was surprised that Derek sat me next to this guy. Perhaps he was coming out of his long, bad streak, or perhaps it was simply because his spot was 2 or 3 feet closer to the middle of the court, and he considered it more desirable. My hopes that Derek was coming out of his funk were dashed when he started making some harsh comments to me out of nowhere. I decided the best solution was to just ignore him and enjoy the game. He left the place between quarters, and when he returned, he brought me a beer. During the break, I chatted with a tall, handsome guy sitting next to me. Looks like he had a problem with his wife or girlfriend similar to mine with Derek. During the break, Derek and the tall guy's wife left their seats, perhaps to buy snacks or use the restroom. Derek said nothing. The tall guy and I exchanged pleasantries. It turned out that we were both players on student teams. About 10 minutes into the break, I looked up at the big screen above the floor and was shocked to see the kiss cam aimed at me and the tall guy. I'm sure my face turned red when I pointed this out to him. Spectators who hadn't gone to get popcorn or go to the bathroom began chanting, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." We looked at each other. "Well, shall we try it?" he asked with a big smile on his face. "Why not? My husband is clearly not in the mood," was my cheeky reply. I was going to give him a quick peck on the lips. However, when our lips met, his lips were so powerful and masculine that all I could think about was a line from Cher's song, "It's All in the Kiss," the song Shoop Shoop, my mother's favorite song, which I often put it on when I was cooking dinner. I put too much passion into this kiss and was in an almost dreamy state until the wild applause brought me out of it. We broke the kiss, and when I looked at the screen again, there was a video presentation of fireworks and the word hot, with various adjectives in front of it flashing and disappearing. Luckily, after a short time, the crowd noise died down as the screen began to show game statistics. I was terrified and didn't know what to say. I was as red as a beet. The guy turned to me and stuttered, since we seem to be the best halftime entertainment, I should at least know your name. My name is Aaron," he said, holding out his hand. I took it and muttered, "My name is Julie. Sorry I got carried away. I didn't mean to," with the refrain, "It's all in the kiss," still swirling in my head. "No problem," he replied. "I got carried away too." Almost comatose, I smiled when Aaron's wife returned a few minutes later and asked him, "What was all the fun a few minutes ago?" As I recall, his response was, "Two reluctant people were caught on a kissing cam, and it looks like their kiss was a little hotter than expected, and the crowd loved the change from shyness to passion." I could barely contain myself not to laugh. I tried to focus on the game after the kiss cam incident, but I couldn't get the feeling of power out of my head when Aaron kissed me. At some point during a timeout in the fourth quarter, I discreetly tore a page out of the small notebook in my purse and wrote my name and cell phone number on it. I quietly handed it to Aaron as Derek and I were leaving when the outcome of the game was already clear. I didn't know what exactly I was thinking when I did this, because I certainly didn't want to change. If Derek's behavior didn't change, the first thing to do would be divorce, not sex with someone else, but I passed the note anyway. That evening and the next day were better than the last few weeks had been, at least at the Waters house. Maybe it had something to do with the way I had sex with Derek on Saturday night. When I got to work on Monday, one of the secretaries in my office laughed and showed me a video of the kiss cam incident. I blushed again. Fortunately, all the ridicule was good-natured, and everyone seemed satisfied with the banal explanation. I don't know why, but after seeing the video that she promised to delete, I decided to find Aaron on the internet. It took me about 20 minutes to find information on the 6'5" power forward from the Division III college he played at. I was pleased that he accurately described his statistics. I did another useless internet search. How long does a kiss last for too long if it's not your partner? More than 10 seconds was the common answer. I smiled to myself, remembering this. Then I cursed myself for not being able to get Cher's "shoop, shoop" out of my head. After thinking about it for a while, and with no intention of changing it, Aaron Jacoby decided to call Julie Waters' cell phone number on the Tuesday after Saturday's basketball game. Julie answered the first call. "I was wondering if you would call Aaron Jacoby," Julie answered in a sing-song voice. "Oh, you saw my last name on the caller ID," Aaron laughed. "I recognized her earlier. From what you told me at the match, I found you on the internet. There aren't many 6'5" power forwards at that college who led the nation in recruiting their senior year. It's nice to know you didn't embellish your details," she laughed. "Well, now I'm at a disadvantage," Aaron chuckled. "I haven't been smart enough to try and look for you, so maybe you can just tell me your last name." "Oh, you're not interesting," laughed Julie. "But since you were kind enough to call, I'll say, this is Waters, my married name. My maiden name was Reynolds, but you still have to find me to make sure I didn't embellish my information." "I'll definitely do it, but first I'm curious why you gave me your phone number." "Because I wanted you to call after you took advantage of my poor, pure, innocent nature at a basketball game, and with all the bullshit I received in my office from my coworkers, one of whom even screen recorded, 'I think you should buy me lunch.'" "Okay," Aaron laughed. "Even if it's not exactly how I see the situation, I see no reason not to have lunch with you. How about the Pot Belly Deli at Prescott and Vine? It's about the same distance from campus and my office. Fits. I was thinking about Letelevant, Julie laughed, referring to the most expensive restaurant within 100 miles, but Potbelly would do. What day and time? How about Friday, 12:30, Aaron suggested. Fits, see you then, Julie replied again in her sing-song voice before ending the call. Weird, Aaron laughed to himself. Aaron and Julie arrived at Potbelly at exactly the same time on Friday and were both smiling widely as Aaron opened the door for her and they walked in. They ordered at the counter. Aaron paid and then found a distant table and put the number 14 inches on it. Either Aaron didn't get a good look at Julie other than her lips on Saturday, or she really had cleaned herself up because she looked a lot brighter than he remembered. Her emerald eyes seemed to simulate lasers and contrasted beautifully with her shiny brown hair with copper highlights. Her breasts were significantly larger than he had noticed at the game. Julie got a good look at Aaron, not just his lips on Saturday, and he looked just as impressive today. She liked his blonde hair, piercing blue eyes and broad shoulders, and such a sweet smile framed by charming dimples. Julie and Aaron simply talked to each other about their lives and backgrounds while they waited for their order and while they ate. It was a pleasant conversation for both of them, and they often looked into each other's eyes, as if mesmerized by the intensity of each other's irises. When they finished eating, Julie said, "Do you have time to walk around Veterans Park? He's very close." "Great idea," Aaron replied. "I don't have to get back to the office until 2:45." They walked leisurely to the park without physical contact, casually talking about current events. When they arrived, Julie directed them to a distant bench and sat down, Aaron following politely behind her. With a devilish smile on her face, Julie turned to Aaron and stared straight into his soul. "I'm a very straightforward person, Aaron. That's why I gave you my number and wanted to meet you. I have a certain plan." "Is it true?" Aaron grinned. "Yes, really," Julie smiled in response. "As you can tell from the game on Saturday, Derek has been really annoying me lately. He is the love of my life, and I want him to go back to the way he was when I married him, so I have no intention of breaking up with him just yet, but some things have to change. I could tell from the game that you were in the same situation as me." Aaron's eyes widened. "Almost exactly the same situation. Megan is the love of my life, but something has to change. I can't continue to live the way I've been living for the last 2 or 3 months. That's one of the reasons I wanted to meet you," Julie continued. "Maybe by combining our efforts, we can regain what we had with those people whom we hoped and considered our life partners. Maybe by comparing notes and ideas, we can do this." Aaron smiled, truly happy for the first time in a long time. "There is a second reason why I wanted to meet you, and it's hard for me to talk about it, but since I'm always straightforward, I'll say it anyway," Julie replied with a hidden smile. "I've always been a planner, and that's what the admissions department relies on in my work, and I want to plan for contingencies. And one of those contingencies would be that you leave Derek." "I'm surprised a power forward can be so insightful." She laughed with a smile that Aaron found more than endearing. "Yes, that's exactly what I mean. At the risk of sounding pushy, I'll say straight out that you are the only person I've been attracted to since I started my long-term plans about 3 months ago. So, did I scare you?" After a long pause, both maintaining sly smiles, Aaron replied, "Not yet. I may not be as far along as you, and I'm not one to jump from one relationship to another, but I have to admit that you are somehow both mysterious and seductive. What role do I play in your plans?" "I'm glad you weren't so rude as to suggest something indecent to me," Julie replied, with an even wider smile. "I'm not going to cheat if sex and pleasure are considered cheating. However, your kiss was honestly, although it will make me hot to say it, definitely in the top 5 of my life. So I'd like to have a casual relationship, maybe a few kisses and cuddles, for a while we both see how our marriages progress. While we try to help each other rekindle what we had with those we hoped we would love all life, we size each other up in case our marriages don't work out. Maybe we meet once a week or so for an hour or two, talk about how things are going, exchange ideas, and see if we have a mutual interest in each other if our marriages fail. Aaron stared at Julie for the next few minutes. Neither of them seemed interested in breaking eye contact beyond a few fleeting blinks. Finally, Aaron said, "You really are a very straightforward person, Julie. I like it. No extravagances. I don't want to cheat either, but a few kisses and hugs never hurt anyone. Megan does this at every party we go to. Text me this weekend and tell me when and where we'll meet next week, okay?" "Sounds like a plan," Julie laughed. "But first, let me give you some advice about Megan. Don't let everything pile up. Make her sit down and listen to you. Tell her that she is the love of your life and that you want the man you married back, and give her some time to process that." After a long pause, Aaron responded, "Good advice. I thought about this myself, but hearing it from you makes me realize it's a really good idea. What about you? Is there any wisdom I can offer from a man's perspective?" "Only one. Why was Derek being aggressive towards a guy I was just talking to?" "I can't be sure because I don't know him or the guy, but I think you should start by asking Derek why this particular situation has him so angry and if there's anything that can be done to prevent this from happening in the first place." "Future," Aaron smiled. Julie thought for a second. "Good advice," she smiled back. They got up from the bench and walked back to Julie's car without any physical contact, but with more pleasant chatting. As they approached her car, Julie said, "Here I come. Thanks for lunch." "But I didn't get dessert," Aaron said, and then gently pulled Julie in for a kiss. She stopped him. "Wait," she said, taking a stopwatch out of her bag. "What is this?" Aaron laughed. "I timed the video my colleague took of our kiss on Kiss Cam. It lasted about 28 seconds. According to the internet, an appropriate kiss should not last more than 10 seconds. Let me know when you're ready and I'll start my timer, which is set to 10 seconds. It has a beep when the time is up." Julie grinned. "Are you serious?" Aaron started to ask when Julie interrupted him. "I just started the timer. Don't waste any more time," she said with a grin. Aaron immediately pulled her towards him and their lips met. For him, it was as sweet as a kiss on the kiss cam. For her, it was just as courageous and strong. They seemed to reluctantly break the kiss when the timer rang. Julie smiled and said, "Okay, very good," opening her car door and sliding smoothly into the driver's seat. Aaron waved goodbye to her as she left. Aaron was surprisingly productive when he returned to the office at 2:40, quickly completed several interrogatories and requests for recognition for one of the cases he was working on with a senior partner, assigned assignments to paralegals, and then went home around 5 p.m. On the way home, his thoughts returned to his meeting with Julie. Aaron fully supported her plan. Doing everything you can to get your spouses out of their jealous phases while assessing how compatible they are if things don't work out. As Julie drove home from the college admissions office, her thoughts were similar to Aaron's. She would really try anything to make things work with Derek, but was probably a little more pessimistic than Aaron that it would work. When Aaron returned home on Friday night, he was glad to see that Megan seemed to be in a slightly better mood than she had been before. They went out for an early, casual dinner, but then Megan suddenly announced that she had promised to help a friend who had a problem. Aaron was unhappy that she hadn't mentioned it earlier and that it had intruded on their time together. She promised, "I'll make it up to you when she returns." Although she returned later than he had hoped, when Megan arrived home, she was in a good mood, took a quick shower, and then came to bed naked. The sex that followed was good. Aaron might have called it lovemaking if it weren't for some snarky comments Megan made about the broken door lock in the master bedroom that was never fixed. It took a huge effort for Aaron not to answer her, but he restrained himself and was glad that he did when she came to bed naked, with her large breasts glistening with moisturizer. After some very enjoyable sex, with Megan resting her head on his shoulder, Aaron thought, "I really don't want to lose Megan, not only because I love her, but because she's a great sex partner. We'll talk tomorrow." After breakfast on Saturday morning, Aaron said those words that most husbands dread hearing their wives say, "Honey, we need to talk." "About what?" Megan answered sharply. You are the love of my life, but you have changed in the last few months. You are constantly jealous, make sarcastic remarks about my reactions to other women, have been cold and insensitive for a while, and are often in a bad mood. I want the woman I married back, and I want to know what I need to do to get her back. Megan hesitated for a long time, tried every possible evasive method she could think of, including, "You're making this up." But when Erin took her hands and refused to accept her excuses, she finally began to cry. Erin gave her a few minutes to gather her thoughts and wipe away her tears, and then, in as gentle a manner as he could muster, said, "Okay, tell me." Megan took a deep breath and said, "At your firm's last party, about 3 months ago, I overheard two paralegals and one secretary talking. They were talking about what a wonderful man you were and how they couldn't believe you were stuck with sword, as they called me. They also hinted that you might have a wandering eye, and they discussed how they could get you into bed." Aaron was slightly taken aback by this. His first answer was honest. "There is no woman in my company who is as attractive or sexy as you, so why should you care what they say?" "You're just saying it," Megan responded after taking another deep breath. "No, it's true," Aaron answered firmly. "Who were these women?" "I only know one of their names, Caroline, something is there. One of the others was about 5'2" with breasts so huge, I wondered how she could even walk upright, and the other one had red hair and freckles," Megan replied, not meeting his gaze. "That must be Cynthia and Wendy," Aaron laughed. "Wendy is a prostitute. The only thing Cynthia has going for her is her big breasts, and Caroline is about half as beautiful and sexy as you. I can't believe what those three bitches said could affect you like that." Although Aaron said this to reassure Megan, in his heart he couldn't believe her since Caroline, Cynthia, and Wendy weren't like that in his interactions with them in the past, and none of them had ever tried to hit on him. He decided that he would find out later, but now was the only time for reconciliation. "But their words still hurt me. And after that, I watched you closely and really noticed how you perk up when an attractive woman walks by." "For God's sake, Megan, I'm a man," Aaron laughed. "Dieters are allowed to look at dessert menus without getting fat. Although my perception is different from yours, it doesn't mean anything. I'm not interested in anyone except you unless you're the woman I married, and not the woman you've become in recent months." Aaron, not the most insightful person in the world, could not understand why his words did not have such a positive effect on Megan as he expected. However, she didn't run away, but she still didn't meet his gaze. To correct a possible mistake, he continued, "I want to be sensitive to your feelings, even if it doesn't mean anything. I will try my best not to look at other women, except in social situations where everyone mingles." "Fine," Megan responded curtly. "Okay," finally looking him in the eye. Then she said, "Are we going to the tennis club this morning? I really need to practice a bit. I have a tournament match against Abby Blaine tomorrow." Damn it, Aaron thought to himself. Abby Blaine was a bitch, but possibly the hottest woman in the state. He needed to buy himself some all-round glasses before the match, as he was sure Megan would want him there, if only to test his resolve. Julie's Friday night didn't go as well as Aaron's, although his night, with the exception of sex, wasn't particularly successful. When she got home, Derek announced that he was going bowling with the guys. "When was this decided?" asked Julie. "I told you about this on Monday," Derek replied. "Bullshit, I didn't," Julie snapped. "I wouldn't forget something like that, and just last night, I mentioned the possibility of going out to dinner tonight, and you muttered, okay. I guess I just wasn't listening to you," he smirked. His smirk wasn't the smartest move. "You're a fucking moron," Julie snarled. "You get so upset that I'm just talking to a guy at a party that you start acting like I'm a prostitute, and then you think you can just dictate your terms to me. You think it's appropriate to ignore me because what I say isn't important, and then you just go off on a Friday night. Aren't you worried that I might go and sleep with someone, you idiot?" Derek hasn't seen Julie this angry in a long time. He decided to choose his words carefully. "Look, I'm sorry if there was any misunderstanding, both at the party and tonight. How about I call my friends and tell them I won't come over until I take you out to dinner? Julie calmed down. Not at Burger King or Wendy's, she replied stone-faced, crossing her arms. What about Italy? We'll be able to eat real Italian food, and it won't take up the whole evening, so I'll only be late for bowling by half an hour or so. Please, Julie, I'll give you another foot massage tonight. Italy was a good local trattoria, so Julie agreed and Derek went into another room to call his bowling friends while Julie changed. Julie and Derek actually had a good chat during dinner, discussing their days. Julie forgot to mention her lunch with Aaron, but instead regaled Derek with stories about some of the essays the mid-year applicants were writing. When Derek returned home that night, Julie was already asleep. Aaron checked with everyone Caroline, Wendy, and Cynthia individually about what Megan had told him. All three categorically denied that they had discussed anything like this at the party, or that the three of them had ever been alone together. All three also strongly denied ever calling Megan sword under any circumstances or even thinking so. Two of them said they were jealous of her height and build. All three blushed slightly when asked if they had tried to seduce Aaron, but answered honestly, I never hit on you, and you know it. Aaron thanked them and believed them and bought them each a pair of earrings. Around the same time that Aaron was questioning Caroline, Wendy, and Cynthia, Julie was quietly asking the wives of people Derek might be dating about his bowling trip. It wasn't that she didn't trust Derek, but she also made a point of checking his car's odometer after dinner on Friday and before he got up on Saturday morning. None of the information he received matched his bowling story, although it was still possible that he was telling the truth. For the next 4 weeks, Julie and Aaron met for an hour or two once a week, sometimes for lunch, sometimes for something else. Neither of them was getting the response they had hoped for from their spouses, and both wondered why they felt like their spouses were lying or that their jealousy was a manifestation of guilt. Nothing they offered each other helped. They ended each meeting with a 10-second kiss, which seemed to get better as time went on, even though it seemed unlikely given the intensity of their kiss on the kiss cam. At their last meeting on Monday afternoon, Julie came up with a desperate plan. I'm at my limit, Aaron. I think I need to shock Derek to get him out of his 4-month, unacceptable state. Do you feel the same? Aaron thought for a moment, but then said, I never thought I'd say this, but yes, I feel it. Julie sighed and said, Here's my plan. Bring Megan to my house this weekend, and we'll call to set up a time. Together, we will confront them with the truth. We will say that we did not have an intimate relationship, but that we are disappointed with them, and if nothing changes, we will divorce them and leave for each other. Aaron's eyebrows rose. What if they call our bluff? Who said it was a bluff? Julie grinned, and then pulled Aaron towards her and planted a kiss on his lips without any timer. After the heat from the passionate kiss had dissipated, Aaron responded with restraint, Give me a couple of days to think about it and make one last try with Megan. Perhaps I will accept your offer. Maybe, Julie snorted, and then planted another hot plasma kiss, which even made the kiss on the kiss cam look a lot calmer in comparison. When they broke the kiss again, Aaron breathed, most likely. On Tuesday night, Aaron made another attempt to talk to Megan. Although she offered a few empty words, she was mostly dismissive. On Wednesday, Aaron called Julie, and they agreed to meet their spouses on Saturday at 2 p.m. at Derek and Julie's house. Personal story by Julie Waters. As Saturday afternoon rolled around, the day Aaron and I agreed to confront Derek and Megan about their unacceptable behavior and threaten divorce and us leaving for each other, I was ready to leave Derek. How he went from the supposed love of my life to the jerk he became was a mystery to me. Although I wanted to try one last time, I wasn't sure I wanted it to succeed. Aaron, as far as I could tell, was everything Derek was when I fell in love with him, plus he had that special kiss that was not only incomparable in my experience, but beyond my most unrealistic expectations. I made it clear to Derek that he had to be back from Saturday's golf game by 1:30, at the very least, since important guests would be arriving at 2, and that if he didn't return on time, the locks would be changed. I even made him talk on the phone with the repairman, whom I had already paid for and who was ready. Derek was annoyed, but I knew he would comply. Aaron and Megan arrived at exactly 2 o'clock. Megan was more beautiful than I remembered, but she looked very stressed. When I called Derek into the living room to meet our guests, his face paled and his jaw dropped, and Megan's eyes widened. Suddenly, I had a eureka moment. I introduced Megan and Derek after Aaron introduced me to her. I noticed that both Derek and Megan relaxed a little when I introduced them, and they politely said, "Nice to meet you," while shaking hands. I know I shocked Aaron to his core when I started chatting happily and lightheartedly, and then made this statement. Aaron and I met at a basketball game we went to 6 Saturdays ago. I don't know if you, Derek and Megan, remember each other from that game. Derek said insincerely, "I actually think you look familiar, Megan. Now I remember." Megan added, "Yeah, you look familiar too." Well, anyway, I continued, Aaron and I had a nice chat at halftime and have called each other a few times since then, and we both realized that we liked bowling and we wanted you two to meet, so we decided to arrange a meeting at the bowling alley today. Even though Aaron and I haven't bowled in a while, he said Megan used to, and I know you, Derek, go bowling sometimes, so this might be a good opportunity to make new friends. Aaron was still confused, but he let me lead the conversation. Derek and Megan seemed to smile with relief. So what I did, and I hope this isn't too bold of me, I booked a slot at Southside Bowl and Billiards for 2:30 p.m. I know you know where it is, Derek, because you've been there before with your bowling buddies, and Aaron and Megan can go straight to dinner, since I know Aaron has a surprise dinner for Megan, and so we can get to know each other better. I'll go with Aaron and show him the way, and Derek, you can take Megan. If we leave now, we will make it on time. I noticed that Megan and Derek exchanged furtive glances and then smiled softly. Aaron's eyes were big, but he didn't say anything. As soon as I got into Aaron's car, he humorously asked, "What's going on, mystery woman?" "Turn onto Chester Street and turn right. I'll explain as soon as I make the call," I replied, taking out my cell phone. I called the Southside Bowl and begged them to give us a lane for 2:30 p.m., offering the owner $50. He agreed to let us through in line and allocate a lane no later than 2:40 p.m. I then turned to Aaron. "What restaurant would you like me to make reservations for you and Megan for tonight?" "What?" Aaron laughed. "Will you tell me what's going on?" "I promise I'll explain as soon as I book a table. How about Italy? This is a restaurant that Derek and I go to sometimes. They know me. This is a good local Italian place," I said. "Okay," he laughed. I called and tried to order for 19 o'clock, but had to settle for 18:30. "Okay, the reservation for 18:30 is in your name. Now I'm sending you the information on your phone." After I sent him a text with the information, I said, "Now I can explain." "Please explain," he laughed. I was very pleased with the way he accepted this turn of events and did not explode. Of course, like many men, he didn't catch what I did. "Derek and Megan are dating." "What the hell?" he exclaimed, almost driving off the road and receiving a long honk from a car in the next lane. It's clear from their reactions that they knew each other and were scared to death that we had brought them here to charge them with treason. They were extremely relieved when I came up with the bowling story. We can meet tomorrow, exchange information about their activities, hire a private investigator, and then decide what we'll do. If we went with our original plan, it would be a bad idea because their affair would give us much more leverage when, not if, we file for divorce. I growled more than I spoke. Then I realized that I was too self-confident. "Sorry, I meant when I filed for divorce from Derek. You obviously have to make your own decision. If we get the smoking gun, Megan will be history, and I want to be the first one to be there for you." Aaron chuckled, then smiled and put his hand on my knee for the first time since we met. "Do you want to be the first one to get to my place?" I laughed. "You're so cheeky," he laughed. We spent the rest of the trip planning when and where we would meet the next day and discussing ideas for choosing private investigators. The bowling alley owner kept his word and we started setting up the scoring computer and putting on our bowling shoes at 2:35 p.m. Megan and Derek calmed down when they realized we weren't going to expose them. Aaron was being deliberately friendly, and I was as fake friendly as I could be in my life. I pretended to be having fun, although I doubted Aaron was as happy as he looked. I even slept with Derek that night. It wasn't even close to making love, and I imagined it was Aaron who I hoped I'd soon be making it for real with. Personal story by Aaron Jacoby. Megan seemed to like Italy and gobbled up Julie's story about how I wanted to surprise her by taking her to this restaurant for dinner. We went to the club after that and rocked the dance floor until we dropped, and that night I had sex with her. If what Julie said was true, this was one of the last times I was with Megan, and Julie turned me on so much that I didn't feel any guilt about thinking about Julie. I carefully went through my calendar for the last 4 months and also did some internet searches and credit card checks before meeting Julie on Sunday at 2 p.m. in the conference room next to her office at the university. We quickly established at least 6 dates, including a Friday night when Derek was supposedly going bowling and Megan was helping a friend in crisis when Derek and Megan could easily date. It also became clear that they worked in the same office building. Their companies were only 3 floors apart, and according to information from Julie, Derek had purchased all 4 tickets to Saturday's basketball game on his personal credit card. We were puzzled why they decided to go to the basketball game with us. Julie finally opined, and I agreed with her, that there were 2 reasons. The first is to check whether we suspect them of treason. The second is to get another opportunity to be together. As I thought back on that day, I realized that they both left their seats after every quarter, perhaps to paw at each other or laugh at how gullible we were. By 3:30 p.m. on Sunday, we were sure they were cheating and had narrowed down 3 possible private investigators. I was supposed to meet 2 of them on Monday, Julie was supposed to meet the third, and we were both supposed to meet whoever we liked the most. We ended our meeting with a kiss that was probably the longest and hottest of our lives. But we weren't going to go any further until the divorce papers were filed. Julie made it clear that she would file for divorce as soon as she had evidence from the detective. She had already met with a lawyer, a friend of her brother's, who had a reputation as the toughest lawyer in the state. I had already spoken to this woman on the phone, and she was willing to represent me too once we got the evidence and I met her in person. If the evidence the detective gets is what we expect, I am also determined to get a divorce. I had never handled divorce cases, never wanted to do so, and didn't want to involve anyone else from my law firm in my personal matters, so I was more than willing to use the same attorney as Julie. Because I knew that once I had irrefutable evidence of Megan's infidelity, I would never sleep with her again. It would be considered a legal reconciliation, and since she was a good lover, and I could fantasize that it was Julie between Sunday when Julie and I met, and by the time we got the detective's report, I was like an elephant in heat. I hoped I wouldn't tire Megan out so much that she wouldn't be able to sleep with Derek when a detective might find it out. But to my surprise, she was usually willing, and if she wasn't, I'd just get her drunk and/or give her a foot massage, and then had sex with her. 2 weeks and 2 days after that Saturday, when Julie came to the conclusion that Derek and Megan were cheating, we met with 2 private investigators tasked with collecting evidence. We felt the evidence was overwhelming, and when we showed it to our lawyer, Judy Orca, she was practically licking her lips. This raised the question of how exactly we would file for divorce. We are fortunate to live in a state and to have an attorney of Judy's acuity and connections who allows the petitioner to meet with other people once the case is filed and notified, and the judge makes a preliminary order that marital assets are not to be dispersed or redistributed without the written consent of the parties, and also that any post-marital behavior should not affect the progress of the divorce. On the advice of a lawyer, both Julie and I left our rental homes and moved into cheap month-to-month apartments the day the divorce papers were filed and served. They were handed over by the same bailiff to Derek and Megan on Friday during their lunch together. Just a week after the divorce petitions for adultery were filed and served, a judge issued a preliminary order prohibiting the waste and misuse of marital assets and precluding any post-filing counterclaims as grounds for divorce. The following weekend after receiving this ruling, Julie and I went to a 4-star resort about 100 miles away for a 3-day vacation. I thought I knew Julie well enough by the time we went to the resort. I found that she had many surprises, 99% of which were great to great. I should have suspected something when, before we got into my car for the trip to the resort, after one of our heated 30-second kisses, she looked not just into my eyes, but into my soul and said, "I really hope that you're at least half as good at sex as you are at kissing." Our first sexual encounter, which was mutually initiated within 10 seconds of the bellhop, leaving our resort room, was as animalistic as it gets. We kissed, eventually separated, and then showered together. It was then that I noticed how perfectly slim and toned her body was. Her figure resembled that of a tall Olympic gymnast with large breasts. After the shower, we went to bed, got comfortable, and began to tenderly make love, looking into each other's eyes and smiling all the time. Afterwards, we lay down next to each other, nose to nose. I was the first to speak. "It's hard to believe, but reality turned out to be even better than fantasy," I smiled. No truer words could be said. Julie smiled in response. "I predict that by the end of this visit, we will have no doubt as to what to do next," I continued. "I no longer have any doubts," she answered with a sly smile. Then we kissed, and the honey from her sweet lips drove me crazy, just like in the song Butterfly. I was not surprised that, judging by Julie's words and my observations of Derek, his attempt at reconciliation was superficial. What was unexpected was that Megan appeared to actually be trying to reconcile. If she had tried to do this before filing for divorce, there might still have been a chance. Perhaps there would have been a chance even before our trip to the resort with Julie. However, after this trip, there was no chance that I would ever be happy with anyone other than Julie. Both divorces were granted. Julie and I got married 3 weeks after the last one was carried out. About 3 years after their wedding, Julie and Aaron were at a women's varsity basketball game. Julie was 8 months pregnant and on maternity leave. Although she had to go to the bathroom several times due to her shrunken and heavily strained bladder, she made sure she was in her seat during the break given the mess she had with the arena's IT department. During the break, Julie smiled widely and turned Aaron's head to the large screen above the platform in front of them. They were the focus of the kiss cam like 4 years ago. Aaron didn't say anything this time as they locked lips, and he gently stroked her belly. Sirens, bells, and fireworks went off as the entire crowd cheered, and the lovers, each in their own private world, felt deep gratitude for the meeting their exes had arranged 4 years ago. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.